Have you ever wondered if true intelligence isn't about how much you know, but about how gently you let go? We live in a world obsessed with accumulating more achievements, more connections, more knowledge, more presence online. The world shouts at us that we should always be adding, always proving, always explaining, always visible. Yet the most intelligent people I've ever met are the ones who carry less. They've learned the art of subtraction, because intelligence isn't just about collecting truths. It's about knowing which truths no longer serve you and having the quiet courage to unlearn them. But unlearning isn't easy. It means questioning the stories you've told yourself for years. It means challenging the labels the world has pinned to your chest. It means asking, is this belief still true for me? Or have I simply carried it so long, it's become part of my skin? So many of us are exhausted, not because we're weak, but because we're still hauling invisible weights we should have let go of long ago. The expectation to always be understood, the loyalty to outdated versions of ourselves, the guilt that coils around our tongue whenever we say no, the silent resentments we hold like secrets in our chest, the need for validation to remind us that we exist. And here's the truth. These aren't signs of intelligence. They're signs that we're overdue for a gentle letting go. The Stoics taught that wisdom lives not in holding tightly, but in the calm discipline of release. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." To revoke is to unlearn, to quietly loosen your grip on what no longer deserves your hold. So let me ask you, what beliefs are you still gripping? That might be the very chains keeping you heavy. Today, I want to share with you 5 things an intelligent person quietly lets go of. Not because they're cold, not because they're distant, but because they've discovered that true freedom isn't in knowing more, but in caring less. If your spirit has been longing to travel lighter, this is your invitation. Let's begin. There's a hidden exhaustion in always trying to be understood. It's the silent fatigue that comes from explaining and re-explaining who you are, what you feel, and why you do the things you do. At first, it seems harmless. You think, if they just knew me better, they'd love me. If I could just explain this right, they'd finally see my heart. But intelligent people, especially those who've tasted the emptiness of endless explanations, eventually learn a hard truth. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world, because the need to be constantly understood isn't always about connection. Sometimes it's simply fear wearing a softer face, fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear that silence means insignificance. Social media has made this even worse. We've built a world where everyone is a personal brand. We curate our captions, we share our authentic moments, hoping someone will nod and say, "Yes, I get you." But here's the quiet secret intelligent people discover. Being seen is not the same as being understood, and being understood is not the same as being valued. I once knew someone who explained every decision she made. She'd say, "I'm not cold, I'm just tired. I'm not ignoring you, I'm overwhelmed. I'm not distant, I'm protecting my peace." At first, it seemed like transparency, but I began to notice how drained she looked after every conversation. Because the truth is, constantly explaining yourself drains you. It places your worth in someone else's comprehension, and it builds an invisible prison around your spirit. The Stoics were relentless about inner sovereignty. Epictetus taught, if someone speaks ill of you, rather than defend yourself, say, "He obviously does not know me well enough to speak of my faults." Imagine the freedom in that. Imagine quietly deciding, "I know who I am. I don't owe you a performance." Because the moment you stop performing, something magical happens. The people who truly care remain, and the people who only wanted your performance disappear. An intelligent person unlearns the belief that everyone has to understand them. They unlearn the idea that misunderstanding is a personal failure. They unlearn the reflex to explain their silence. They begin to see that not explaining is sometimes the clearest communication of all. Because silence, when chosen from clarity, is not avoidance. It's sovereignty. Yet I understand why it's hard. For many of us, childhood taught us this lesson. Be nice so people won't leave you. Explain yourself so people won't get mad. Keep talking until people approve. We learned that silence is dangerous, but intelligent people begin to unlearn that script. They start to trust that real love doesn't demand footnotes, and true relationships don't collapse under a moment of mystery. One evening, I remember sitting quietly beside a friend. Neither of us said anything for a long time. When we finally spoke, she whispered, "I used to be terrified of silence. Now it feels like I can breathe." That's what letting go looks like. It's not loud and it's not dramatic. It's just a quiet exhale. An intelligent person realizes, not everyone will understand me, and that's perfectly okay. So let me ask you, who are you performing for? Who are you exhausting yourself to explain your soul to? If you stopped explaining, who might leave? But more importantly, who might stay? Because the people meant for your life don't require a constant map to your soul. They simply stand beside you quietly. So the next time you feel that impulse rising, to justify your choices, to prove you're not cold, to explain your silence, pause, breathe, ask yourself, do I really owe them this explanation? Or am I just afraid of being misunderstood? Because an intelligent person chooses inner peace over outer performance. They understand that misunderstanding is not a threat. It's simply a reflection of how different people see the world. And that's okay. So if you've been explaining yourself over and over, let this be your gentle permission to stop. Because you're not cold. You're just becoming clear. So if intelligent people learn to let go of the need to be constantly understood, there's another quiet freedom they discover. The freedom to unlearn the old stories they've been telling about themselves. Have you ever felt trapped, not by your circumstances, but by the identity you've been performing for so long? We say things like, "I've always been the strong one. I'm just naturally shy. I'm the fixer. It's who I am. I'm the life of the party. That's me." But here's the quiet truth intelligent people begin to see. Identity isn't destiny. It's simply a story you've repeated so often. It started feeling like your skin because many of us are loyal to old versions of ourselves, even when those versions are no longer true. We cling to them because they feel familiar, because they once protected us, because they earned us love or kept us safe. But intelligent people slowly start to unlearn this loyalty. They realize that sometimes who you were is quietly standing in the way of who you're becoming. Social media makes this even harder. Every day, algorithms remind us of our past. Old photos pop up, memories from 5 years ago. Old posts resurface. Remember when you wrote this? And suddenly, you're pulled back into an earlier chapter of your life. Sometimes it's beautiful nostalgia, but sometimes it's a subtle prison. Because as long as you keep rehearsing old chapters, you can't fully write the new one. The Stoics believed identity was fluid. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Meaning, you are not your past. You are your patterns until you choose to unlearn them. I remember a man I used to know. He was known for his harsh honesty. He'd always say, "I'm just brutally honest. That's who I am." But I started noticing something deeper. His honesty was sharp, sometimes cruel. And one evening over coffee, he confessed, "I don't know why people keep leaving me." And I gently said, "Maybe it's because you're performing an old version of yourself that no longer fits the life you want." Because sometimes the identity we cling to isn't who we are. It's simply who we felt we had to be to survive a different season. Intelligent people learn to let go of this. They start to unlearn the belief that consistency is loyalty. They realize it's not disloyal to evolve, it's courageous, because it means saying, "That was me then, but I'm choosing something different now." But letting go of old versions of ourselves is terrifying because it leaves us exposed. It forces us to admit we're still figuring things out. And that's uncomfortable. Yet intelligent people accept this discomfort. They begin to replace the question, "Who have I always been?" with a better one, "Who am I becoming?" And here's the gentle truth. You don't have to explain your evolution to people stuck in your history. You don't owe anyone an apology for growing, or for becoming quieter, or softer, or more discerning. Sometimes the people around you will resist your growth because your change forces them to question their own. I once had a friend who was known for being the life of the party, but inside she was burning out. One day she said, "I'm tired of being entertaining. I want to be real." So she stopped showing up everywhere. She grew softer, she grew stiller, and people said, "You've changed." But she smiled and said, "That's the point." So I want to ask you, what old identity are you still wearing, simply because it once kept you safe? Who would you be if you gave yourself permission to outgrow your own story? Because intelligent people realize growth begins the moment you whisper, "I don't do that anymore." They know that letting go of old versions of themselves isn't losing themselves. It's finally meeting who they were always meant to be. So if intelligent people learn to let go of old versions of themselves, there's another silent burden they choose to release. The guilt wrapped around the simple act of saying no. Have you ever said yes while every cell in your body whispered no? Have you stayed longer than you wanted? Agreed to things you resented just to keep the peace? This is one of the heaviest weights intelligent people learn to set down, because they begin to unlearn the belief that kindness means constant availability. From the time we're young, many of us are taught, don't disappoint people. Be nice. Say yes, it's polite. And so we grow up believing that no is a dangerous word, a word that might make people angry or make them leave. But intelligent people start to notice something subtle yet powerful. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you abandon a piece of yourself, because guilt is a quiet parasite. It whispers, if you say no, you're selfish. If you say no, they'll think you don't care. And before long, your schedule is crowded, your spirit is drained, and you're surrounded by people who only love you for the yes you keep handing out. Social media makes this even more complicated. Endless group chats, invitations, unspoken pressure to be always available, a digital presence that demands constant response. But intelligent people learn to unlearn this myth. They realize boundaries are not rejection. Boundaries are clarity. I once knew someone who said yes to everything. She was the helper, the friend everyone relied on, the one who dropped everything to save someone's day. But one evening she called me and said, I feel like a ghost in my own life. I'm always there for others, but I'm never there for myself. That's when it clicked for me. Saying no isn't selfish, it's sacred. Because the truth is, people who truly love you will not vanish because you honored your limits. The Stoics believed in measured restraint. Seneca wrote, "No man is so busy that he does not have time to do what he really wants." Meaning, your time, your energy, your soul are yours to allocate, and you owe no explanation for choosing how you spend them. But letting go of guilt is hard. Because guilt is sticky, it disguises itself as kindness. But intelligent people learn to ask a simple question: am I helping, or am I avoiding discomfort by saying yes? Because sometimes saying yes is easier than facing someone's disappointment. But every yes spoken from fear steals time and energy from the life you're meant to live. Imagine how light your life would feel if you only said yes to what resonates deeply in your bones. If your no was offered calmly, without guilt, without explanation. An intelligent person unlearns the belief that love equals endless sacrifice. They understand, I can love you deeply and still say no. They know that no one who truly belongs in their life will demand that they betray themselves for approval. I want to ask you gently, where in your life are you saying yes when your entire being wants to whisper no? Who in your life has become accustomed to your endless yes, but disappears when you finally stand in your truth? Saying no is an act of love for yourself first, because the world doesn't need another person running on empty. The world needs you, whole. So the next time you feel guilt rising in your chest, pause, breathe. Remind yourself, I'm not selfish, I'm sovereign. So if intelligent people learn to let go of the guilt tied to saying no, there's another invisible weight they release: the quiet poison of silent resentment. Have you ever carried a hurt so quietly that even you forgot it was there? A small betrayal, a cutting remark, a moment when someone made you feel unseen or unloved. You tell yourself you've moved on. You smile, you laugh, you keep showing up. But deep beneath the surface, something lingers like a storm that refuses to clear. Silent resentment is tricky because it wears the mask of politeness. It lets you appear composed, even as your chest tightens whenever you think of certain people. The Stoics knew how dangerous this was. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." But resentment whispers a different message. It says, don't forget how they hurt you. Hold on to this, so you'll never be fooled again. It feels protective. But here's the quiet truth intelligent people discover. Resentment does not protect you, it imprisons you. Psychologically, resentment isn't just emotional. It has a physical cost. It raises cortisol. It fuels chronic inflammation. It exhausts your nervous system like an alarm ringing endlessly. I knew a woman who held silent grudges for years. Whenever someone hurt her, she'd say, I'm fine. But her eyes told a different story. One evening she confessed, I'm so tired of pretending I'm not angry. And I told her softly, your anger doesn't make you weak, but carrying it silently will. Intelligent people begin to unlearn the belief that silence is the same as peace, because sometimes silence isn't strength. Sometimes it's a quiet surrender to bitterness. So how do intelligent people let go of resentment? They don't force forgiveness overnight. They don't fake smiles. Instead, they start by telling themselves a new truth. This wound is real, but it doesn't have to define who I am going forward. They understand forgiveness isn't approval of the harm done. It's the quiet decision to stop letting that harm own your future. Silent resentment is heavy. It keeps you tied to moments you should have left behind. It replays conversations in your head. It creates invisible walls between you and the people you love. But intelligent people realize holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and hoping the other person gets sick. So they begin to unlearn the narrative that says, if I let go, it means what they did was okay. They discover that letting go isn't for the other person, it's for your own freedom. Imagine how different your days might feel if your mind wasn't rehearsing past hurts, if you didn't tighten inside every time you saw a certain name pop up on your phone, if you could remember what happened, but no longer feel the sting when you do. I once spoke to someone who said, if I forgive them, it feels like I'm letting them win. And I said, letting go isn't about them winning or losing. It's about stepping out of the fight altogether. An intelligent person unlearns the belief that revenge is justice. They choose instead the gentle power of distance. They let time reveal who deserves access to their heart. I want to ask you gently, what old resentment are you still carrying quietly? Who are you still arguing with, even when they're not in the room? Because intelligent people know. Bitterness is the chain. Forgiveness is the key. So the next time you feel resentment rise like a tide in your chest, pause, breathe, remind yourself, I can acknowledge my pain and still choose my peace. Because letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It simply means you're ready to stop letting the past steal your present. Let your storms grow gentle and let your silence grow wise. So if intelligent people learn to let go of silent resentment, there's one final burden they quietly release: the endless need for constant validation. Have you ever posted something online, then checked back 5 minutes later to see if anyone liked it? Have you ever shared an idea and felt empty because no one responded? It's a quiet hunger, one that whispers, prove you matter, prove you're enough, prove you're seen. Intelligent people begin to unlearn the belief that validation equals worth, because the truth is, validation feels wonderful. A friend praising your work, a stranger admiring your courage, applause after a speech. But validation, like sugar, is fleeting. It gives you a rush, then leaves you craving the next fix. The Stoics understood this long before social media existed. Epictetus said, if someone speaks ill of you, rather than defend yourself, say, he obviously does not know me well enough to speak of my faults. In other words, your value doesn't rise and fall with other people's opinions. Yet modern life feeds this addiction. Algorithms are built to keep us seeking attention. Likes, shares, views, comments. We live in a time where silence from others can feel like rejection. But intelligent people begin to see through this illusion. I knew a man who posted daily wisdom online, but he confessed to me one evening, if my posts don't get enough likes, I feel invisible. And I asked him, would your words be less true if no one saw them? He sat in silence for a long time, because the truth is, validation measures visibility, not value. Intelligent people choose to unlearn the idea that applause equals proof of worth. They start creating from a different place, a place of alignment, a place of conviction, a place that whispers, even if no one claps, I'm still worthy of my own respect. This doesn't mean they become cold or disconnected. It means they no longer outsource their self-worth to strangers, because chasing validation is a race with no finish line. I remember a woman who shared everything online. Every meal, every emotion, every small victory. One day she told me, I feel like I'm performing my life instead of living it. Intelligent people begin to unlearn this performance. They grow comfortable with silence. They become willing to let their actions echo quietly, even if no one applauds. So I want to ask you gently, whose approval are you still chasing? Whose silence feels like a verdict on your worth? Because the quietest truth is this: you don't have to prove your light shines. You simply have to let it glow. Imagine living each day, unbothered by who claps, free from checking your phone every hour, rooted in the certainty that you matter, even unseen. An intelligent person unlearns the belief that they exist only in the reflections of others' eyes. They know that peace is quieter than applause. and that the soul's true measure is not how loudly others cheer, but how gently you stand in your own presence. So the next time you feel the urge to post, or to explain your worth, or to prove your story, pause, breathe, ask yourself, am I sharing this because it's true to me, or because I need someone else to validate my existence? Because sometimes freedom looks like not replying, and in that quiet space, you discover that the only validation you ever truly needed was your own. So here we are, 5 quiet revolutions, 5 invisible weights, 5 things an intelligent person learns to gently set down. Not because they're cold, not because they're distant, but because they've begun to understand true intelligence isn't about how much you know, it's about how lightly you travel through this life. We live in a world obsessed with adding more knowledge, more hustle, more presence, more noise. But intelligent people learn something most of the world misses. Wisdom is often found in subtraction, in the quiet courage to say, I don't have to be understood by everyone. I'm allowed to outgrow old versions of myself. No is a sacred word. Resentment doesn't have to be my silent companion. My worth doesn't depend on applause. And behind each of these choices lies one gentle act, unlearning. Because life teaches us many things, but it takes true intelligence to gently let go of the lessons that no longer serve us, to unlearn the scripts written for us by parents, culture, old wounds, and fear. So I want to ask you, what weight are you still carrying simply because you forgot you could set it down? Who would you become if you gave yourself permission to unlearn the parts of you that feel heavy? Remember this, letting go is not loss. It's a return to clarity, a return to softness, a return to your truest self before the world told you who to be. So if any part of this video whispered truth to your spirit, take a breath, feel the quiet space around you, and know you are not meant to carry it all. May you walk gently. May your storms grow gentle. May your silence grow wise. And may you always remember that true freedom is not found in knowing more, but in caring less. If this video spoke to some quiet place inside you, if it reminded you that wisdom sometimes means caring less, then I invite you to leave a simple comment below. I choose lightness. No long explanations. No need to prove anything. Just those 3 words as a quiet signal that you're ready to unlearn the weights that no longer belong to you. And if someone comes to mind, a friend who's been carrying silent resentments, a loved one who's exhausted from always saying yes, someone who feels unseen, unheard, or heavy, share this video with them, not as advice, not as a fix, but as a gentle offering, a reminder that we all deserve to travel through life a little lighter. And if you'd like more quiet reflections like this, moments where wisdom breathes and noise fades, subscribe, tap the bell, so you'll know the next time we gather here, in this quiet corner where clarity lives and the storms grow gentle. Until then, stay rooted, stay sovereign, stay stoic.